If you're watching this video, you're probably a Street Fighter 6 player who's interested in starting Guilty Gear Strive but doesn't know how to play it because it's so different from Street Fighter 6. So first and foremost, should you try this game? Let me just tell you this. This game doesn't have throw loops, it doesn't have drive rush, doesn't have this stanky asshole, and it also doesn't have this unnerfable son of a biscuit. So yeah, I think you should give it a try. So if you're watching this video and you don't know what to do, I'm going to try to explain to you the basics of how to play this game as a Street Fighter 6 brained player. Anyways, I don't want to waste your time, let's start. And before we get into system mechanics, we have to say who should you play. I would say just try the whole cast, see who you like the most, but in case you can't figure it out or you don't have that much time, here's a quick list of characters who are similar in Street Fighter 6. Alright, now that we got that over with, let's get right into the actual guide part of this video. Let's talk about some basic movement options. Obviously you can walk forward and back, you can crouch, and you can jump, but then we have extra options as well. So you have a forward run, and this is going to depend on the character. Every character has a backdash in this game. Some characters can run forward, and when you run you can stop it at any time you want. Some characters have a set distance forward dash, and some characters have a forward dash that you can kind of stop in the middle. So a character here like Giovanna has a forward dash where she travels a set distance and a back dash, but if you kind of hold backwards during this forward dash, you can stop it before the whole thing ends, and then you can also just cancel it into another one, just keep on going. However, someone like Johnny doesn't. So here I'm holding back while I'm forward dashing with Johnny, but I can't cancel the forward dash, so he has to travel a certain distance before he can block again. So here with Potemkin doesn't have a forward dash at all. As you can see, I'm hitting the dash button, nothing's happened. Even when I jump, nothing happens there either. So he doesn't have a forward dash, but this is kind of balanced out by the fact that he has a really good back dash, but we'll talk about back dashes in a second. Usually the big body characters don't have a forward dash, but they have kind of like unique movement options with specials that kind of make up for this. Let's talk about forward run, which is kind of like the most common movement option here in Guilty Gear Strive, and kind of some unique things that you have to know about it. Obviously you can travel really quickly and fast across the screen, and the other nice thing is you can kind of stop whenever you want. Now as soon as you hold back, you're in a block motion, so even though it looks like Kai's kind of sliding here, you can block during any of that. So here I'm just going to run into this gunflame, and I'm going to hold back to block, and I can block right away. Even though I'm in this kind of sliding motion, that doesn't matter. One thing that's bad about this forward slide is you can't really precisely control your movement because you are sliding forward out of this run, whether you hold down back or whether you hold back. But you can cancel this by tapping faultless defense. If you don't know what faultless defense is, you got to go through the tutorial again. I'm not going to cover that too much in this video. It is like a fundamental system, but the nice thing about this is you can cancel your forward movement and get rid of that little slide motion out of the run, and that lets you just kind of be more precise and more like intricate with your spacing and your footsies. Okay, next let's talk about jumps and air movement. So of course you can jump in the air. Most characters can do a double jump in the air. Now some can, some can't. Some of the big bodies can't, like Nagoriyuki, he can't. Spend some time in training mode, figure out who can do it, and some of the faster characters like Millie and Chip can do it like 2 or 3 times. Usually in this game, for most characters, if you double jump, you cannot air dash. Alright, whether it's forward or back. This kind of locks me out of air dashing properties. And I might be saying, how do I air dash? Well, you air dash by jumping and then either tapping forward twice or tapping back twice. Or I recommend just using the dash macro button. It just makes everything much easier and much cleaner, and you can be more precise with the timing of your air dashes. Now, air dashes are pretty unique. When you're air dashing back and forwards, you cannot block right away. You are vulnerable to all attacks, whether it's anti-air or just like normals in this game, during the startup and the middle of your dash. Now for forward dash, if you forward dash and then kind of at the end, once your character starts falling in the air, then you can block anti-air normal. So here we go, we're going to record Saul doing this. He's going to air dash and he's going to hold back the entire time. So if I try to anti-air him like really quick, I can anti-air him even though he's holding block. But if it's kind of like later on in the animation, he can air block it. You can block everything in the air while you're jumping like this. So if your opponent doesn't push a button, like so imagine I'm the Kai player, I'm not going to push any buttons, I can block during all of this. And that's going to bring me to my next point. In this game, you do not want to try to anti-air people with like a Shoryuken DP style thing, because your opponent can actually block this in the air. Let me show you a quick example. Alright, so Saul's going to jump at me, I'm going to do a DP, and he blocks that, and I'm actually punishable. That also applies to anti-air normal, something like a crouching heavy slash from Kai, 6P from Kai. This is a universal anti-air, by the way. So for you Street Fighter players out there, you might be thinking, wow, this is really dumb. Why is there so much like timing involved when people are dashing at you or jumping at you? Why is there so much like, what's the point of anti-airing your opponent if they can block in the air? And there's a reason why I didn't turn on the display in this. So I'm going to turn it on right now. I'm going to show you why even letting your opponent block an attack in the air is actually really good for you. So in Guilty Gear Strive, there's something called risk gauge, which is like the gray gauge below your burst gauge here at the top. So if you look at Saul's, you'll notice even when he blocks this, his risk gauge goes up. That was about like what, a sixth of his gauge. Now when that meter gets really full in red, not only does your opponent take more chip damage and more regular damage, the next hit is always going to be a guaranteed counter hit. So cranking up that gauge is really risky for your opponent. And also when your opponent blocks your air normals, look at the tension gauge on the bottom. I gain like significantly more than my opponent does for blocking this. And if you hit them at the right height and do something smart like this, you'll notice I can attack first, so I actually have frame advantage. So even though it sends your opponent kind of far away, it's still your turn. So there are definitely advantages to anti-airing your opponent, even if they block it in the air. So just attempting a general anti-air with something like 6P, which is a universal anti-air in this game, is really important. As a Street Fighter player, you want to forget about anti-airing with Shoryuken and just get into the habit of trying to anti-air with 6P. Or forward P, if that's kind of how you prefer to think of it. This is a much more consistent, really good anti-air. Now, the reason why this is a really good anti-air is because your character doesn't have a hurt box on the upper half of their body. So even if your opponent comes in at you with an attack, I use that upper body invulnerability, and now I can get a combo. And then the last kind of like anti-air dash option we have to talk about is air throw. So when you're kind of at these ranges and you have a feeling your opponent's going to jump, or if you have like really fast reactions, you can basically just like jump straight up and go for an air throw. This is really good at those ranges where you're like too close to do a 6P, or those kind of situations where you just have a read that they're going to do it. But just for like really like hop heavy opponents, doing a neutral jump and then either forward dust or back dust to get a throw is like really, really good. And you can choose which direction you throw them in this game. So if you do like back and dust, you'll throw them behind you, and if you do just forward and dust, they'll throw them in front of you, and then you can use like meter to cancel that and get a combo off an air throw in this game, which is actually really, really fun. And honestly, like getting an air throw and getting the read on this against the jump happy opponent is just like a really good feeling, and I enjoy it. So if you guys have the opportunity, give it a try, because it's like such a dopamine hit. It's really fun. Now in this point in the video, you might be thinking, why would you even attempt to air dash or jump at your opponent because it's so risky for you as the attacker? Well, so the answer to that is you kind of have to represent different movement options. So let's look at like a really common like Street Fighter situation. So Saul kind of throws like a Hadouken at you. It's not really Hadouken, but you know what I mean? He throws like a fireball. You don't really have a lot of forward momentum on your regular jump. And if you kind of make a read against this fireball, you're too far away. So in this kind of a situation, if you have a read and you know your opponent's going to throw a fireball, that's when you air dash in and do something like a jumping, like heavy slash or like a jumping slash, whatever your good buttons are with your character. For Kai, just happens to be jumping heavy slash. So you're just basically using it to kind of like cover different options to get around moves that have like low to like medium hitboxes that you can kind of like scoop over, air dash into, and punish as a prediction. Back dashing in the air, so like this kind of backwards air dash, this is more to control space and to get around faster than just like traditional like back dashing. Or if there's something you really need to kind of avoid in the air to play the kind of like air footsies, if someone's like trying to anti-air you or something like this, you think your opponent's going to go for a 6P against you, you kind of show the forward dash and you back dash, and then you kind of just mess with their reactions. Now let's talk about pressure and how to open up your opponent, the basic like strike throw shimmy of this game. Now it might feel really foreign to you, but once you get into it, it's actually like shockingly similar to Street Fighter 6. There are a lot of things that you can carry over from Street Fighter 6 that apply directly to like the basic way of opening up your opponent in this game. So if it feels really weird to you, don't worry, because trust me, it's not that different. Let's start with the most basic fundamentals of opening up your opponent, starting something with a jab. So in Street Fighter 6, you can do like chains, right? You can do like a crouching light punch, you can wait for it to recover and do a tick throw, or you can do a crouching light punch, leave a tiny little delay, chain it, and catch your opponent for pushing buttons and land a counter hit. Same thing in Guilty Gear Strive. Now, we don't call it a jab in this game. It's either 2P or like 5P. That's what most people in the Guilty Gear Strive community call it. It's kind of like numpad notation. So if you don't know numpad notation, it'll really help you if you kind of learn it, because a lot of people use that notation when talking about this game. So here I'm going to do a single 2P to Saul, and he's going to react with his own 2P. Now, if I try to just do a second one, too late, I get counter hit. But if I chain it, I can counter hit the opponent, and then I can like get a little combo there. This is really similar to doing like crouching light punch, counter hit confirm, crouching medium punch, special move in Street Fighter 6. That part should feel right at home for you guys. Now, let's talk about up close pressure and throws. Okay, so to start really basic offense, basically you would leave a little gap by chaining it, knock them down, run up, and then start your up close meaty pressure. Once you've done that a couple times, your opponent's probably going to stop pushing buttons, right? Because you've frame trapped them a bunch of times. Now, this is your opportunity to go in for a tick throw. Now, this is pretty much the same as Street Fighter 6, but there are a couple of really key differences. First of all, usually tick throws, you're never in range to do a single like 2P, like a crouching light punch, into a throw. You're almost always going to have to kind of dash into it, or dash or run. So basically just like tap forward twice and then throw, just to get that distance that you need. So it's going to take a little bit of time in training mode to get used to it, but throws are actually much faster in this game than Street Fighter 6. Throws are 2 frames in this game, so it's effectively your fastest move. But the really, really big difference in this game compared to Street Fighter 6 is there is no such thing as a meaty throw. Now, why does that happen? Why is there no such thing as a meaty throw? That's because in this game, when your opponent blocks a normal, or when you knock your opponent down, they have 5 frames of throw protection, which means you cannot throw an opponent right away. You have to wait. So that means in order to actually throw somebody in this game, you have to actually make them respect you and just hold block. They're not jumping, they're not backdashing, they're not mashing. You have to condition your opponent to block. That's a big difference with Street Fighter 6, where in that game you can take like +3 or +2, be in throw range, and then throw them, and if they push a button, they lose. That does not happen in this game. So here's an example of why meaty throws don't work and how the 5-frame throw protection kind of kicks in. So yeah, I'm going to run up, I'm going to go for a meaty throw, my opponent recovered, my throw whiffed because they have that 5-frame throw protection on wake up. So if you're sick of throw loops in Street Fighter 6, congrats, because they don't exist in this game. They can't exist because of that 5-frame throw invulnerability. So that means if you want to throw somebody, you have to wait a second, you have to wait for that 5 frames of throw protection to kind of finish and then go for it. So you have to delay your throw just a little bit. So doing something like dash in, block for a second just to get the timing down, and then throwing is going to be really important in this game. Now, just like Street Fighter 6, you can tech a throw, so if somebody tries to throw you. But in this game, it's kind of better to backdash if you think your opponent's going to throw you. That's kind of like the universal counter to throw in this game, and it's kind of the smartest option. And doing things like delay throw tech, like Street Fighter 6, isn't really a thing here because generally the answer is just backdash instead, especially because backdashes have invulnerability on startups. So that's generally the better idea. Okay, so that was pressure off light, something like the crouching light punch or 2P. Now let's talk about pressure off of like your mediums, which are like close slash and stuff like that in this game. Now it's going to depend on character. Most characters are +1 on block, so 1 frame advantage for Kai here after a close slash, which is, think of it as like close medium punch in Street Fighter 6. And then some characters can be up to +3. You have to check out the frame data for your character, but that's not the important part. The important part is how do we open up our opponent with this? If you did the tutorial, you'll know that there's Gatlings here, so you can just do like low slash, 2 slash, heavy slash, and then like end with something like, it's not a Hadouken, but whatever, Hadouken, if you know what I mean. But now there are a couple of ways you can actually frame trap your opponent from here, because you only got 1 frame, right? So if I do this into like crouching light punch, you know, it doesn't really give me much. I don't get much reward. It's really hard to like do traditional frame traps like you do in Street Fighter 6 in this game. What you need to start to learn how to do is either frame trap by delaying the next hit of your Gatling, or by doing a command normal that kind of like auto frame traps. So let me show you a quick example. So I'm going to do close slash, and then I'm going to just delay 2S. Things like close slash, 2S, there's actually a really large window when you can cancel or like chain into the next part of the Gatling attack. So what you have to kind of do is kind of have to get like a feel for your opponent, see when they're pushing buttons, and kind of just like give yourself a little bit of space. You don't want to be like mashing it out frame 1, 1, 2. You have to figure out the timing. It's going to depend on your character, but once you get it, it feels really natural, and it's kind of like your way to create natural frame traps. And then if you don't want to push anything because you think your opponent's going to do like a DP or a super, you know, you're +1 here, you can just block. So that's how you do that. Now the second way is by using command normals. So Kai has a move here, you know, standing light kick, like 5k in this game. If I try to push a button afterwards, I lose because this isn't actually plus. But Kai also has this command normal, which is forward heavy slash, this thing. And this, I'm not even delaying it. It just kind of like naturally frame traps if my opponent pushes a 5-frame button. So this is another really good way to try to frame trap your opponent. So you kind of run in, you auto apply this, you see they get hit, then you know you do your combo. Then after you do that a couple of times, you kind of figure, okay, now my opponent's probably going to stop pushing buttons. Well, that opens you up to do tick throw. Same thing with this. You were doing this into the Gatling, you got a counter hit, you did a combo, you teach your opponent not to push buttons. Now this time, you run in for the throw. Now, there's a lot of different things your opponent can do on defense, but at a very, very basic level, that's how you want to set up your frame traps in this game. Either by manually delaying the next hit of your Gatling, or by going into a command normal that'll leave enough of a gap to still beat people pushing buttons. Just try to be creative with it. There are a lot of ways to frame trap, and you don't even need to just use normals. You can also frame trap with specials. You can try to do something like this, delay it quite a bit, and then if your opponent pushes a button, look what happens. You get a nice big counter hit. And then one more thing we need to talk about are sweeps, universal sweeps. So something like, it's called 2D, so crouching dust in this game. Every character has it, everybody can do this. Some characters are safe on their sweep and some characters are not, but more characters are safe than Street Fighter 6. So doing something like this is actually like kind of not a bad thing at all in this game. And a lot of times what you'll do is you'll kind of like autopilot into a button 2D sweep, and sweeps are cancelable in this game. So you do this and then you just try to find a special move that is like safe on block, and then you push a button. And if you're really lucky, like someone like Kai here, you've got moves that can like frame trap your opponent from this. But as long as you're kind of spacing it out, generally speaking, you're not going to get punished for just doing something like this. If you do it point blank, then yeah, you can get punished for it. But I mean, you shouldn't be doing sweep like point blank in like any fighting game for the most part, unless it's something kind of broken. But just doing something like this and autopiloting is not really a bad choice. And it's a good way to learn how to like kind of like start your pressure in this game. And then if you see a hit, you can either hit confirm into a special, or you can try to frame trap them with it. Or if you have meter, you know, you can always do something like this, but we'll talk about Roman cancels in a bit. The last thing I have to talk about when it comes to up close pressure is you can jump cancel some of your normals. Something like a close slash, if you try to jump after it, you can jump cancel that. Something like 5K, you can jump cancel that, but not crouching normals. Now, also with close slash, you can also dash cancel it. Now, this is not safe on block, and you don't even get to set up your pressure. This all will tie in once we learn more about the Roman cancel system, but just know that you have the option of either dashing after this or jumping. Next up, let's talk about Oki and like wake up when you're attacking the defender in this game. So really quickly, I'm just with Kai. I'm going to do a sweep for a knockdown. I'm going to do like a meaty close slash, and Saul's kind of mashing on throw here on wake up. So in this game, kind of like Street Fighter 6, but a little bit more, you have a lot of active frames on like your close slashes and some normals. Kai, this is kind of an egregious example, but his standing like light kick, like his 5K, you can kind of just throw this out and it'll stay active for a long time, so your opponent has to respect that on wake up. So that's how you pressure them. Now, if you try to throw your opponent here, they can tech your throw. So you can also shimmy in this game. So you can kind of like represent a throw, and then you can backdash, and then you'll have enough time because there's a lot of recovery on a throw. Just like Street Fighter 6, you can run in, backdash, something like that. You could do something like this, frame kill into a meaty, and then you can kind of like fake it, backdash, and then cause a shimmy. And that's how you kind of beat your opponent that way. Now, another thing to remember is that in this game, because throws are 2 frames, if you mess up your meaty timing, you can get thrown and punished. So I was talking to some people who are learning the game, some Street Fighter players, and they were saying, oh, Chris, I always get thrown on my turn. Why is that happening? All that's happening is you're mistiming your meaty. A throw should not beat you as long as you're timing it properly. Strike will beat throw in this situation. So if you're getting thrown on your turn when you knock your opponent down, that means you're messing up your timing. And then when you want to throw your opponent, you have to kind of like run up, stop for a second, wait for that throw invulnerability to end, then you can throw them. So again, in this situation, kind of like when you're doing offensive pressure, you have to use your meaty attacks to kind of make your opponent respect your pressure when they get up off the ground. And then once they stop blocking, once they stop jumping, then you can go for your throw. Alright, I think this is a really good timing for me to talk about the one time you don't have throw protection as the defender, and that's when you get guard crush. So there's some special moves or some moves in this game that'll cause a guard crush effect. So Potemkin, this move here, see how Saul kind of like reels backwards like that? He got guard crushed. Now you can still block during all this, but what happens when you get guard crushed is you lose throw invulnerability. So if I do something like a close slash and try to like throw Saul afterwards, I lose. Right, this is a command grab. Doesn't matter if it's a command grab or a regular grab, you'll still lose your throw invulnerability. So I'm trying to frame trap with this, I lose. But if I guard crush Saul and go for my command grab, I win, and I'm able to like meaty throw him there. So that's really the only time throw is going to beat strike in this game, because your opponent doesn't have that throw invulnerability anymore. You can even do this off of a regular throw. The timing's really hard. I probably don't know this. I don't really play Potemkin or nothing like that. There we go, got it. There, that's when you can do meaty throw on block when you're at plus frames. Otherwise, you would have to wait for their throw invulnerability, those 5 frames to end. It's a really big important part of this game, and knowing that you got guard crushed kind of changes your defensive options, and you got to know that happens, and that's a big difference in Street Fighter 6 because that doesn't exist in that game. Alright guys, that's the end of this video. I hope that helps, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm still making Street Fighter 6 content, by the way. I'm just enjoying something else too. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Helps me out so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Peace.